am here with my sister, Tracie Guy Decker. She does use a hyphen.
And I am here with my sister, Emily Guy Birkin. She does not use a hyphen.
No hyphen for me. And together we are doing Lightbringers, where we illuminate the deeper meaning of the crime-solving devil TV show. And yes, we're overthinking it.
Totally. It's
so
what we
much
do.
Overthinking.
It's what we do.
It's what we do.
So today, we are opening season 3.
Woo!
With season 3, episode 1 and 2. They're back, aren't they? And the one with the baby carrot.
Yes. Yes.
I'm realizing on this rewatch that I don't usually rewatch season 3. It's like there was maybe 1 or 2 episodes that I go to, but as a whole, I kind of avoid it.
It's my least favorite season, and it's many people's least favorite season. I mean, some of it has to do with the love triangle subplot. Doesn't work. It's
let's actually hold off on that because we will get there. We haven't seen it yet in these 2 episodes.
Yeah. But so there's that. There's the casting of Tom Welling. I don't want to
besmirch his character.
Yeah, I'm sure he's a lovely person, and I'm sure he's a good actor for the right role.
Yeah.
But he doesn't fit.
He's pretty wooden
with this cast. Yeah. And so on a previous rewatch, I've been trying to be like, all right, considering what we find out about him later, him being kind of wooden makes sense for his character, but I don't know if that was a choice or if that was just Tom Welling. Because I think he gets by on his looks quite a bit. Again, don't want to besmirch his character, but he is very handsome.
Quite handsome.
Although when we get to Fluff, I'm going to have something to say about multiple levels of handsome in these 2 episodes.
Okay. All right.
So I'm going to hold that off for Fluff.
Okay. So I'm going to start at the very beginning with an overthinking it moment that actually is a holdover from the last episode where we saw him in the desert, that you rewatched, as you shared with us.
Woo.
And I mean, they kind of speak to it in the very beginning of episode 1, but why did he get sunburned? How is Lucifer able to be sunburned? I mean, he does say, at least I'm healing quickly, but he shouldn't have been able to be sunburned.
That is a very good point.
Unless
Chloe was nearby.
Chloe was close. How was he even? I mean, he asks the question in this episode, how were they able to knock him out? But even going with that, I just don't think he should have been able to be sunburned.
And we do find out later that she was at the hospital.
Oh, do we? I don't remember.
So when he got knocked out. Yeah.
Okay.
So I feel like that gets explained that she was at the hospital, but that does not explain the sunburn. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. So that was my first kind of overthinking it moment with this episode that kind of fades pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I do love it that here's where we get the name that follows Lee for the rest of the series arc. Set out, bitch.
I so love seeing him. I have so much affection for this minor character, this poor guy who has been through so much and yet is still so funny. and what he wants is I just want to get out of here, man. It's so understandable. And oh gosh, yeah. And then the chemistry between Jeremiah Burkett, who plays Mr. Set Out Bitch, and Tom Ellis is great.
Yeah.
And I feel like Joe and Ildy were like, yeah, that is great, because we see later they get a whole episode together.
They get several. I mean,
They bring I love seeing that guy. I love those callbacks. The first time I watched it, because I binged, and I got there and I was just I only very slightly remembered it because I was watching straight through. But still that chemistry still got me I only barely remember what happened at the jewelry store, but these 2 are hilarious.
Yeah.
So, that moment where he stops right in front of him.
Yeah. Inches from him.
Inches.
Yeah. Okay. So I feel actually I've already talked about the wings. We talked about how I like my headcanon on the wings. I'll just repeat, so when we first heard about the wings in season 1, they made humans go mad. right? Like with this proof of divinity, like the devout atheist couldn't be separated from them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now, like the girl he's fooling around with is like, oh, I love cosplay. And it's just no big deal anymore. Even Linda, like, she already knows, so I guess that's why she doesn't go crazy. But like, she's like, this is gruesome.
It freaks out the kidnapper, but not in the
same way,
not in the same level. Like, he didn't, because in the first season, that the guy who had stolen them committed suicide. Because he was so freaked out. And so this guy was freaked out, but he was more freaked out about the Sinner Man coming after him than he was about, like, it was just like startled, freaked out. And I actually, in some ways, I feel bad for that guy, because like when he was coming back, like, obviously he should have turned himself in, blah, 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 blah. But he was coming back because he was just like, that I got to get the guy that I brought out there, and he was too late. Like, that's why he was there. It wasn't he was a murderer returning to the scene of his crime. He was also covering up evidence by then. But like, the impression I got is he went back, was like, oh shit, all right, I got to cover up evidence, rather than
maybe
I'm a murderer returning to the scene of the crime. It was an accident.
I think that's a little muddy, but okay. Yeah. But okay. But yeah, the effect that the wings have on humans has changed. And so, just as a reminder, my headcanon on that is that the first pair were actually God-given. We don't know yet. Spoiler alert. The new pairs are actually like spontaneously growing because of Lucifer, not because of God. Spoiler alert.
And then this we do know is one of the things, they were created in heaven, the original pair. These are created on earth.
That's true.
So it could also be,
Yeah. So anyway, that's my headcanon on why it doesn't make humans go crazy in the way that the first set did. But I that's me. That's my generous read. I'm not sure that the showrunners actually had an explanation.
Yeah. Well, and as we've talked about before, writing for a television show seems like it's got to be the most difficult type of writing.
Yeah.
If you want anything to continue.
Because like doing continuity and coming up with new storylines, it's not
when you could be canceled at any time.
Yeah.
Woo,
it's hard to like plant Easter eggs.
Yeah. So I'm willing to do like that headcanon that it's because they were built on earth, not in heaven. And so there's like that extra distance from, divinity. So I was thinking about how it was actually also pretty elegant that when he's like, all right, I'm going to show you, and he can't get his devil face to come up, he'd already cut off his wings, so he couldn't prove it that way either. And I was just like, oh, because there have been times before where I'm like, why didn't he just show her his wings as his way to show to prove it? And I was just like, oh, he didn't have them right then, because like
at that moment he didn't, but then they came back. Why didn't he?
Well, and then there is some stuff later about like, this isn't who I am.
That's true. Like, he says that specifically to Linda.
So so in that moment when she's so upset at him, I could see him being like, no, really, here, let me show you something else. He could have done that because of the emotional response he was having to her hurt. But once like he's in a cold state again and not like reacting to her being hurt, he's gonna be like, no, that's not how I want to show her.
That is such like actually so funny. It still makes me chuckle when he's like, are you gassy? What is happening? He's just doing that like chin down, like man, it's hard. It's actually, if I try to really take Chloe Decker seriously, it's kind of hard to believe that she would stick around the way that she does. I mean, like, he's just cuckoo banana pants from her point of view.
He is
like, but I mean, it's like weird and quirky, but then it just keeps getting like, and then I'm going to show you. And then he looks gassy. Like, and then she does that weird, like nervous rant to Pierce, to the lieutenant about like Lucifer showing me his thing or whatever. Like that doesn't work for me. Like that just didn't feel.
Here's where I'll give that. She does know there's something that she cannot explain. And I take it as, because there's something she cannot explain and she really has no idea what it could be.
Even though he tells her repeatedly.
Even though he tells her repeatedly, she is I think she's willing to go long further, partially because she likes a mystery, you know.
True.
And so that's something that I'm willing to go with, that is character driven, that she's like,
she could solve the mystery.
I want to solve this mystery. I want to figure out what this is. I can't figure it out right now. And then even that nervous rant, which does feel a little weird, but it gets back to like, I hate not knowing, you know? So that's my
your headcanon on that
generous take of it. Yeah. So maybe, I do want to talk about Amenadiel in these 2 episodes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, for one thing, like just seeing again what a selfish jackass Lucifer can be. Like, I mean, that moment is funny with the text message.
So funny.
And if you've ever paused it, where what Amenadiel responded back, like, I don't know what this means. Can you please tell me what's going on? Lucifer, tell me what's happening.
So funny. It was like, what was it, like sword, fire, donut, spaceman, clock.
Dancing woman, flashlight, thumbs up.
Oh man, that was very funny.
And the fact that like then you see like Amenadiel is like devastated.
He's fallen. Yeah.
His mom's gone and he's never going to see her again. And he didn't get to say goodbye. And like, it was really like a terrible situation, but it's still his.
Yeah. There's still grief.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Lucifer's already on to the next thing.
Mm-hmm.
And just doesn't care. Although he is emotionally intelligent enough now to stop himself when he's like, it's ironic you can't get your wings back, and I got kidnapped to the desert. Like, it's not really ironic. That's more said ironic.
That's not really ironic. Yeah.
So, fun fact: when I was a teacher, I would teach early on. I would teach irony to the students, and I brought in the Alanis Morissette song, and like, you know, with the lyrics, I was like, all right, decide if any of these actually fit the definition of irony. So yeah, that was a fun lesson that I used to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And starting to see Amenadiel and Linda like develop a relationship separate from each of their relationship with Lucifer is really kind of fun.
Yeah.
And Maze. Yeah. Good point.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was really kind of fun.
Yeah.
To see that pairing in these episodes. Well, mostly the second episode, I guess.
I do appreciate those pairings, and I appreciate, I feel like we're seeing some like real emotional growth from Amenadiel. In that, like, he confronts Lucy about having found his wings, but as he said, I'm not mad at you. And like, that's actually a very mature response, because it's easy for a sibling to be mad at another sibling for having something they want. And he recognizes, this isn't about me. Exactly. You know, he does then take it to like, this is my test. But he recognizes this is not like my wings were not taken away and given to you.
Right.
Kind of thing. Which one of my kids earned a medal for something yesterday at school and the other did not. So this is on my mind. So that like that is like interesting that that's how he responded. And then the moment when in the second episode, when Linda says, this feels kind of cruel, and his response was, well, if it wasn't hard, it wouldn't be a test. And they're both right. You know, like, if this is a test, it would have to be something that really, really hurts. But if this is like God's plan, what a capricious, cruel father.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, like that's a both end thing, where like, and again, and Manny-Dale doesn't know. He's guessing. He's doing the best he can. But that's the other thing that I think is really cool, is that he's doing the best he can, and trying to be supportive of Lucifer. And like what he says when he's like, I'm disgusted by this. I'm horrified by this. But if Lucifer wants to treat his wings like trash, then we will treat them like trash. That's what they are. Which it feels very, it's very different from season 1.
Very different from season 1. Yeah. I mean, because in season 1, Amenadiel was very self-righteous.
Yes.
He was an antagonist though. And so, but yeah.
But even then, when he confronts Lucifer, he's like, I'm angry at myself for whatever I've done to make you feel like you can't confide in me.
Yeah, that's true.
Another like heartbreaking thing to say.
Yeah, because it wasn't even about his own sort of trials. It was about their relationship that he was angry. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so much more petty overthinking thing.
I love those.
So when he sees them and they're like, what the hell is this text message with the string of emojis? Lucifer says, good news is you get your necklace back. And he hands him the piece, right?
But there's no chain.
There's no chain. And presumably, like, we saw him take it out of the sword and toss the sword behind the goddess Light
in her new universe. Yeah.
Did he have time to like go home and put it in the penthouse before he was then kidnapped? Because if it was on his person when he was kidnapped, like he didn't have a shirt or jet, like how did the piece like survive that whole ordeal? Maybe he keistered it. It does get easier the second time, so he says. That feels unlikely.
Yeah, I feel like Amenadiel wouldn't want it back. That's where it's been, but
oh man.
That's a good point that I had not thought of. Yeah, where has it been?
Which, like totally overthinking it, because who cares? But
although, we do see at the end of when he arrives to see Dr. Linda, he has flowers, and so he's had a chance to at least stop and buy something.
That's true.
So he might have had a chance to even like stash it in the
Corvette or something.
In the Corvette, yeah.
All right, I'll buy that. that.
So it's been sitting in the glove box.
Yeah. Without the chain. Yeah. So okay. Pierce. I want to talk about Pierce. We talked a little bit about
Tom Welling's
wooden delivery. I think there's some like the mysteries that the showrunners are setting up for us, the viewers at this point, are pretty interesting, like, because with Ella's sort of fangirling over him, right? And then, Sinner Man killed somebody really, really close, really damn close to me in Chicago. But then also the like spying on them when they were at the crime scene. Like they're really setting up like, we don't know who this, like we, the viewers, don't know who this dude is, whether we can trust him, like what his deal is. He's downright cruel to Dan. So I think that's kind of interesting, knowing where we're going with him. Like they set it up to make sure that we would
really be curious.
Want to know this dude's backstory. Because prior to this, like we've barely even talked about the lieutenant unless it served the story, like in the very, very, very beginning.
Yeah, there was that female lieutenant early on,
right? Who Lucifer slept with in order to get slept with and granted a favor in order to get the gig as the consultant. We haven't heard about the lieutenant since then. So I mean, they're setting up, so we already know there's something up with this dude, because why do we care so much about the new lieutenant, and then with the way that he behaves and how he talks to Decker, and even the way he was like, last year we investigated 92 of your sexual partners. I'm not going to shake your hand. Physical, I'm going to refrain from physical contact.
That delivery I will give to Tom Welling. I got to give him props for that, because that was delightful delivery.
Yeah. So he's like, I feel like this sort of setting up the kind of enough airs of AIRs of mystery around him is really it's effective, you know, and like asking Dan for the Lucifer files, and like, what is this dude up to?
Yeah. So as for like the cruelty to Dan, it's interesting, because that's one of the things that we've talked about, is that Dan got a slap on the wrist. And yeah, he was really pretty cruel to Dan, but at the same time, it's just like,
maybe he deserved it.
Yeah, this needed to be said at some point. So he did need to be that uncomfortable. You know, hey, at least that gun that you checked out wasn't used for a homicide.
Right. And for us to know that, like,
there is some disapprobation,
at least the writers know that, like, that happened, and it wasn't really sufficient consequences, not plausible consequences for the real world, at least.
Yeah. So that, and then that gives us a sense that in at least the fictional world of the Lucifer's LAPD, even if all he got was a slap on the wrist, we do see that there are long-term consequences, because people talk about him. We do see that sidelines him. I mean, even there's the point where Pierce texts Lucifer to meet at Dan's desk, and then he's like, all right, like, I'm like, and Dan's like, this is my desk, you've got an entire office, right? Fine. And again, like, it's interesting that we have this ambiguous character as the one who is meting out this kind of potentially,
we don't know if we trust him or not. So, and that's part of why we don't know if we trust him or not, right? Like, so,
and like, it's written for us not to necessarily sympathize with it.
I think the writing is pretty good. Like, we don't sympathize with him, but we don't hate him.
He's got a point. Everything he's saying, he's got a point. Even the, like, when I think it's Sam is out on bail, and she's like, wait, what do we do? What happened? He's like, friends in high places. And look, if you're you know, you can't win them all, you do what you can. Which that seems like that if you were someone who took law enforcement seriously and truly wanted to protect and serve, that would be the only way to keep going. In the same way, like, oncologists, I'm sure, have to also be like, we can't win them all, we do what we can and move forward.
I mean, ultimately, can't win any. Death is
yeah, that's true. So yeah, it's the ambiguity that they have set up, I think, is good. And in these early episodes, I feel like Welling's delivery, for the most part, works.
Yeah, I agree. I just thought of something. So here's an overthinking it. Like, speaking of Ella and her fangirling, like, maybe actually that is a clue, because she fangirls over Pierce, and then she fangirls over Bobby Lowe, who turns out also to be
a dick,
crooked in you know, different ways than are originally maybe suggested, but like, so maybe actually that is a little bit of a
and there is like something later on where we find out that she's attracted to bad boys.
That is true. That's much later, but
much later, but
so I don't know, there's some that maybe there's some foreshadowing there. It's also, Ella's character actually is really interesting in these two episodes too, in the way that she's like giving a sermon on faith to an angel. There's something like, but it's believable. It doesn't feel, and like, Amenadiel doesn't seem to receive it as condescending or mansplaining or humansplaining
to an angel.
Like, he actually seems to, you know, go with her on her little pep talk, which I think is really,
there's something kind of touching about it.
There is. Even the way, like, he sees the box with the dead squirrel in it that she's like decorated kind of Day of the Dead style or whatever, and she asks if he's a believer, and there's this almost imperceptible movement of his head to indicate assent. You know, it's like, not, so he doesn't say yes or no. You know, I don't know. There's something about that scene between the two of them that stayed with me.
Yeah. Well, and what really got me also is the fact that she refers to the squirrel as like the most pathetic sad sack that had his nuts run over. And that's actually one of the reasons why I love Ella so much, is that she's a person of immense faith, but she does not gloss over the ugly parts of life. Like, she recognizes the unfairness, the distastefulness, the hard parts, the pathetic parts. And it's interesting because she's saying this to Amenadiel of the angelic ego, and he doesn't take it poorly. Like he takes it in the spirit in which it's given, that like, whatever your lowest moment is, there's probably a reason for it that you don't know yet, and it can be helpful to someone somewhere. And that's like, that is a very hard thing to hear if you're in your low moment. But because the way that
them, I feel like shit, I don't care how this is going to help somebody else.
Exactly. But the way that she says it, and she's doing it about a dead squirrel,
right?
And recognizing that this is a very minor thing. It's a squirrel. If it hadn't been run over, you never would have known it existed. But like the fact that she has compassion for this dead squirrel. And even also, meanwhile, I was thinking like her like reenacting how the guy died. Like, part of me was just like, that seems not okay. But at the same time, that comes from the same sort of like deep empathy that she has for all creatures. Like, she's like, I understand how this man died. And while I was watching it this time around, I was thinking like, for whatever reason, I've been reading and listening to things that are about true crime lately. Like, I don't personally like true crime, but I like the stuff that's like engaging with true crime. So like
Only Murders in the Building.
Yeah, Only Murders in the Building. And then I read a book that was about a true crime podcaster, but it was made up. And so there's some grappling with the type of people who are very interested in true crime. And so I was thinking about like, oh man, yeah, someone into forensics would probably be like someone who's very interested in those sorts of things.
Yeah.
And that's part of what's going on there. And that there is an ethical and compassionate way to engage with this. So it's not just like, I'm just interested in the puzzle. And Ella kind of embodies that. It's not just like, this puzzle is fascinating and it doesn't feel real to me. It is real to her, as she is so like energetically doing everything she does. She's a character I can't think of any similar characters like anywhere else, because of all of those various facets that just merge together in such a way that is uniquely Ella Lopez. And I love what they have done with that character, and what they have done with by ensuring that there is someone who has faith on in the cast, or in the story. So I would like to talk about, well, I want to mention, this is the first time we have seen, since the first episode, we've seen anyone that Chloe arrests recognize her.
Yep.
And considering who this guy is and the way he lives his life, it is completely comprehensible that A, he would recognize her, B, he would assume this was a joke. And then like, what am I supposed to think? You're named Lucifer, and she's the chick from Hot Tub Hotel, Hot Tub High School. She wasn't in the sequel. Like, look, you need to be accurate. So and I really like, I love that momentary callback, because that is the sort of thing that is going to follow her.
Yeah, absolutely.
Particularly because of where she lives. I mean, being in Los Angeles, like people probably are consistently like, oh, the valet guy, I thought I saw him on Party of Five, or, like, but I imagine that's got to happen all the time. And people end up taking second careers after trying acting, or, have co-careers at the same time.
Yeah.
Which brings me to the second episode. I do want to talk about comedy and plagiarism.
Okay.
So a dear friend of mine is a stand-up comedian, Ken Schultz. You should look him up. Ken Thin Guy on Twitter, I believe. There's also Ken Schultz, who's a fisherman, so that's not who you want. So
fishing for jokes here. Okay. Fishing for laughs. All right. So Ken Schultz, I have heard his name many times.
Who he has done the stand-up circuit since college. So he knows many, many, many comedians in the circuit, and some pretty big names included. And the issue of joke theft is a like big kind of open secret in comedy. It was very different prior to cell phones, because it would be hard to prove that someone stole your joke. And the issue of people taking jokes from others. So like Dennis Leary got famous on jokes that he took from, and I'm not going to think of the guy's name. He died young of cancer, but a very well-known comedian who was just peaking when he died. And so that's just known. There are plenty of people would talk about, they would refuse to do sets in front of Robin Williams because he just kind of was like all over the place, take things from anywhere, and wouldn't realize where he'd gotten it from.
Right. That actually jibes with the way that he
and that's hard to hear about Robin Williams, because we all have so much affection for him.
Actually, it just jibes, like not with any kind of malintent.
No malice aforethought.
He was just, kind of regurgitating things so that it makes total sense, actually.
And so and what I find interesting is there's joke theft and there's joke theft. So what I've read about Dennis Leary is that he not only took the jokes, but the delivery. Now he made it a little bit more edgy, a little bit more like Boston Irish, like Dennis Leary, but that's what he took. Whereas the murderer at the end, Sheila, is like, we all have an itchy butt joke. What you do with it is what counts.
Right.
And that is something I personally really grapple with in terms of creativity, because I have this limiting belief that I have to be original or else I am not really creating anything new. I don't want to call it art, because when Bobby Lowe at the end, he's like, but what about my craft? And it's just like, oh, come on. I mean, even though I truly believe that comedy is an art, I truly believe that, and it can be transcendent in the way that any art can be. It can also be garbage in the way that any art can be.
Yep.
There's clown mermaid versions of comedy.
Right.
And there's Sistine Chapel versions of comedy.
Right.
So I think that it's really interesting getting to that at the end where he has that realization, like, I'm Lucifer Bloody Morningstar. Just because someone has taken this from me doesn't mean that I can't keep this, make it my own,
and keep
do
doing
this in
it
my way.
Yeah.
And that is, I think, a really important lesson about creativity and about how to make things your own. My co-author Joe loves the book Steal Like an Artist by Austin Kleon. Are you familiar with that one?
I'm not.
Where he says all artists steal. Now there's like plagiarism, which is where you take something and you just pass it off as your own, but stealing is where you take it and you remix it and you make it your own. And so the importance of knowing how to steal like an artist is really a lesson that all creatives need to learn and understand, and also know that there is a line, like and figuring out where that line is and how close they are to it. So I think the difference is, when you are stealing like an artist, you're paying homage. You say, like, I got this from here, and I mixed it with that from there, and this is what I added myself.
Yeah.
Whereas Dennis Leary will never admit to where that early material came from. But that's something that I was really interested in part because when you have media set in LA, you often will get stories about LA.
Yeah, that's sort of meta, like Yeah. Like the stories about the television show being produced and those sorts of
Yes.
things.
And so, and there are things in there that, are in there in the same way that writers often write about writers.
Yep.
Movies are often about movie making. It's you write what you know. And then there are things in there that people have strong opinions about that you don't get to put in just stuff into a detective procedural unless you have something happen on a movie set
Right.
or a TV set. So that I think was really interesting, but I also feel like they're saying something really interesting about creativity in there and how they work as Joe and Ildy and their writers team, how they work, because they are very much borrowing from many places, but Lucifer is its own thing.
Yeah. Even from the original source material, the game and graphic novels, it is its own thing.
It is very much so. And then, the other thing I find really interesting about creating a television show or movie, as opposed to other types of art where you do that kind of remixing, is that then you have the actors' interpretations.
Yep.
Because part of the reason why Lucifer is its own thing is because of Tom Ellis.
Agreed.
And just what he does with that character.
And the way that he brings that character to life completely.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. That adds that extra layer of artistry to the other. Yeah, absolutely.
I do want to say, now having talked about creativity and how we've talked before about how much we appreciate what Joe and Ildy are able to do. But the Sinner Man as the name of a mob boss, and like what they're doing when we find out later who the Sinner Man is and why he chose that name, and knowing that they are fans of Nina Simone, and that is a phenomenal song.
And doesn't Tom sing that song? I mean, don't we hear Lucifer sing that song?
Yeah, in the first season.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
While his wings are being stolen.
Yep.
Yeah.
So like all of that.
Actually, whoa. While the original set of wings were being stolen, he was singing Sinner Man. And now the Sinner Man is like being manifest and they're growing back.
Yeah.
Sinner Man's about the wings. All right, sorry.
So, but here's the thing. If this were a novel, I would be eating this up with a spoon. It's the fact that I hear people over and over going, the Sinner Man, which is just a silly thing to say.
Well, they do acknowledge that, because when he's on the phone with Maze, he says, no, not cinnamon.
Yeah. And I think that's one of those things that works better in text as you're reading, where you could be like, oh yeah, the Sinner Man, puts chills in the hearts of every criminal.
But instead, if you're reading I want a sticky bun.
Yeah. Yeah.
He puts sticky buns in the hearts of everyone.
But seriously, as you're reading it, I think it would be like, oh yeah,
sinister.
Yeah. This is scary. But hearing it out loud, it just doesn't translate. But like that connection, like the Nina Simone, the wings, the reason for the choice of the name that we find out later, like all of that is actually really good construction. Just doesn't work with that word.
It does. It is hard to, like, when Pierce is trying to be like, don't even say it, not even in the precinct, it's too dangerous.
Yeah.
Like that does feel a little hyperbolic.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and it's like, you kind of have to make up your own word. Like, we don't like mentioning the turf lady, but like Voldemort, like, don't even say it, he who must not be named. That actually sounds pretty sinister. Because she made up a word and she is really good with linguistics.
Yeah. And it's got the word, like it has the Latin for death. Yeah.
And vol is it's close to like the word for rape in French is viol. And like it's she is very good at that linguistic stuff.
Yeah.
That's one of her immense talents.
Yes. Yeah.
I totally get why they did it. And I think if it were a novel, it would work.
But hearing them say it out, especially with
say it out loud,
especially with Tom's put on British accent. I mean, he is British, but he's Welsh anyway. But with Lucifer's accent, it does sound pretty. I mean, I'm glad that they had him say no, not cinnamon, because that is what it sounds like he's saying.
Yeah. And I really think that it was the Cinnamon, because I tried to get my husband to watch the show. I think I can remember telling you like, yeah, he doesn't really like it. And you said to me, it was like, I understand every word you're saying, but in aggregate, I do not comprehend. What do you mean he doesn't like the show? And I got him through to when they introduced like the Cinnamon as a plot, and he's like, I'm out. Like, just like, I can't.
Oh, man. All right.
One other thing I want to bring up.
All right. And then we got to do some fluff. And
then we got to do some fluff. So the other thing I want to bring up is the whole thing about the micro penis.
Oh, yeah.
So something that had not occurred to me is I recently read someone saying that making jokes about penis size is transphobic. Oh. And I was just like, that is a very good point. That's it gets to
what does it mean to be a man?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That has nothing to do with what masculinity really is. Mm-hmm. Now as I've mentioned before, I was on this book tour. It's the book is a funny guide to money, which sounds weird. And my co-author, Joe, who's a 54-year-old, he's a 14-year-old in a 54-year-old's body. Someone was asking him like, hey, so did you write all the dick jokes? And he's like, actually, no. Emily wrote like 98% of them. And I would say on book tour, I was like, yeah, I didn't do the size joke because I don't do size jokes. Which I said to be funny, but is actually also true. We have one size joke in there, which I then like make a comment about that, saying like it's not the size of your stack, it's what you do with it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And by stack I mean stack of money.
Thank you for clearing that up.
Yes. But I feel like I've never really particularly liked size jokes, and I've never really had like partially because I don't know what to think about it because I don't have that equipment. But it just always it feels weird to make fun of someone for something over which they have no control.
Yeah.
And it was interesting in that this episode kind of had it both ways, just like what Dan was saying, which is like, you weren't defending him. You were just using the opportunity to tell more of those jokes.
Yep.
And again, that's one of those things where I wonder if by the 6th season they would have written it like this.
Written it differently.
Yeah. And it's one of the many ways that patriarchy hurts men too. Mm-hmm. So and it took someone saying like that's transphobic for me to be like, oh, okay, yeah, now I get it. Like I get what that amorphous, like I'm a little uncomfortable with this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, makes sense. All right, take us home with some fluff, Em.
Oh, I've got fluff. All right,
let's hear it.
So in they're back, aren't they? I want an appreciation post for shoulders. So Amenadiel in that sweater thing, and like, oh my goodness, those broad shoulders. Oof. And then Dan, when he puts on that blue shirt, it's just like, oh, hi, Dan. Hi there. And then Lucifer is always looking pretty good.
Yeah. Actually, that's really interesting that the guy that they bring in for questioning, who had been, and he says like that handsome jerk from the club. And Lucifer's like, what's he talking about?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
So I was thinking about this. Last year, my book club was over. I don't remember how we got to talking about it, but I mentioned, all the guys that I have on my like drool list. So, there's Tom Ellis as Lucifer, obviously. David Duchovny I've mentioned before. He was the first torch that I carried. And then that was right when the movie Palm Springs with Andy Samberg came out, and I have a thing for Andy Samberg too. Like that guy, like he's funny and handsome, and it's just like. Mwah. So, and actually that's all three of them, funny and handsome. And then while my book club was over, my husband came out and brought us some drinks or something like that and came back in. And so my friends were like, what do those 4 things have in common? Like those 4 men, I don't see what those 4 men have in common. And I thought about it and I was just like, big noses and broad shoulders. And then I was realizing, because Pierce also fills out a shirt very nicely,
but
he's got a little
waspy
button
nose.
Just a little teeny little button nose. And I'm like, I feel about him the way that I do about Robert Pattinson, where I enjoy when he's on screen and find it very, very delightful, but I'm not attracted to him. And this is I went to see The Batman, and I found myself, I feel that way about Robert Pattinson. I love him as an actor. I love the choices he makes as an actor, but I'm not like, oh, like, you know, his fans are. But watching The Batman, I was like, I want to wrap myself around him like a blanket. And then I realized that in addition to all of that, it's also like emotionally broken.
So it's broad shoulders, big nose is emotionally broken.
And funny.
Oh yeah. Right.
That's my type.
So this is interesting. You have me thinking about it. My very first TV crush was Leonard Nimoy as Mr. Spock. So I think maybe for me, it's about eye makeup on men. Because Lucifer's eyeliner and Leonard Nimoy had a lot of eyeshadow.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
In the original Star Trek.
It's funny. I can remember when you told me that, and I remember like, because even like I love Leonard Nimoy. I loved Mr. Spock, but I never saw him that way. I was Captain Kirk. I was just like, he's handsome and choose the scenery. But when I found out like lots of people thought of as Mr. Spock as a sex symbol, and I was just like, oh, okay. I don't have that switch. Whatever it is.
You know, per the Batman thing, I'm maybe thinking it's men in eye makeup who are emotionally unavailable. So, you know, this sisterly team, like, go team, we're super healthy. If you want our coaching and relationships, drop a comment below. Oh man.
Oh, that's a little more than most people probably wanted to know about the
either of us.
Of our brains.
Yeah. All right, y'all. I feel like we have way overthought it. That is enough overthinking.
We have overthunk it enough.
Overthunk. We better go before we say something truly embarrassing.
You know, I have no secrets
from either of our viewers. Love you both.
We have 12.
Oh, sorry.
12 subscribers.
Oh, 12. That's like lucky disciples or something.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
all right.
See you next week.
All right. See you next week.